For those of you who've been watching my channel for a while, you probably know that I commonly identify hypervelocity stars as being UFOs, even though I think the vast majority of astronomers would disagree with me on this point. However, we recently detected, or rather NASA astronomers recently detected, another so-called hypervelocity star traveling at an incredible velocity. We're talking about a star that could travel from Earth to the moon in less than 12 minutes, and from Earth to Mars in less than a day and a half. Insane velocities compared to any of the spacecraft that we have in service right now, or even any spacecraft that we are going to be putting into service in the next 50 years or so. This star is really moving incredibly fast, but at the same time, most astronomers would definitely argue that I have no right calling this thing a UFO because we absolutely know what this is. It's just a star that's traveling at a strange velocity. But there's one big problem with this star, something about it that simply should not exist, because this star isn't alone. It has an orbital companion with it, a planet, orbiting at a substantial distance actually, and this planet simply should not be there. We have no natural explanation as to why this planet is there. However, there's definitely a very good artificial explanation. We're going to learn more about that on our latest installment of Alien Month on the Angry Astronaut right now. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Alien Month. You probably have seen this animation a couple of times on my channel. It depicts what is likely going to happen between the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies in about 2 billion years. Well, at least the first contact between the galaxies will be in about 2 billion years. During this process, many stars will be ejected into intergalactic space, and the remaining stars will coalesce into a new galaxy. Now, there is unlikely to be very many direct collisions between stars during this process, but what is more likely to happen is the supermassive black holes at the center of both galaxies are very likely to collide. And when they do, the burst of radiation and other chaos that's likely to come with an event like this is going to be utterly cataclysmic to anything living within thousands of light years of the new center of the new galaxy. Something that will ultimately pass, and the new galaxy will evolve into a very thriving area of star creation, but any civilization living there in the meantime probably wouldn't fare very well. Might not be a bad idea to get the hell out of Dodge, so to speak, which, in my opinion, might be what these extragalactic stars are in the process of doing. However, before we talk any further about the motivations of super advanced alien civilizations, we should also talk about the Discovery. A team of researchers at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, discovered a planetary system that appears to be moving at almost 2 million kilometers per hour, or 550 kilometers per second, and apparently it has a planet in tow. And this planet is not close to the star, but rather orbiting at a considerable distance from a very low mass star. This is very, very bizarre. And from our understanding of natural causes, or at least assumed natural causes as to why stars travel at these types of velocities, it makes absolutely no sense. This will actually be the first time that we have ever detected a planet in orbit around a hypervelocity star. And the reason for that is pretty obvious. It is assumed that hypervelocity stars get to this kind of velocity as the result of a supernova explosion very close to their solar system. Something very powerful, something very dynamic and energetic, and more importantly, sudden, that blasts the star away from its original trajectory onto a new trajectory and velocity. And anything orbiting it, especially a planet orbiting at a considerable distance, should get blasted away from their host stars in a completely different direction. So this pair of objects was first spotted indirectly in 2011 thanks to a chance alignment. A team of scientists combed through and archived data from something called the Microlensing Observations in Astrophysics, a collaborative project focused on a microlensing survey conducted using the University of Canterbury Mount John Observatory in New Zealand. The team were searching for light signals that betray the presence of exoplanets. Now, microlensing occurs because the presence of mass warps the fabric of space-time. Anytime an intervening object appears to drift near a background star, light from the star curves as it travels through the warped space-time around the nearer object. If the alignment is especially close, the warping around the object can act like a natural lens, amplifying the background star's light. In this case, microlensing signals revealed a pair of celestial bodies. Scientists determined their relative masses, one being about 2,300 times heavier than the other, but their exact masses depend on how far away they are from the Earth. It's sort of like how the magnification changes when you hold a magnifying glass over a page and move it up and down. David Bennett, a senior research scientist at the University of Maryland and NASA Goddard, said, quote, "Determining the mass ratio is easy. It's much more difficult to calculate their actual masses. The 2011 Discovery team suspected the microlensed objects were either a star, about 20% as massive as the Sun, and a planet roughly 29 times heavier than Earth, or a nearer rogue planet about 4 times Jupiter's mass with a moon smaller than Earth. To figure out which explanation is more likely, astronomers searched through the data from the Keck Observatory in Hawaii and ESA's Gaia satellite. If the pair were a rogue planet and moon, they'd effectively be invisible, dark objects lost in the inky void of space. But scientists might be able to identify the star if the alternative explanation were correct, although the orbiting planet would still be much too faint to see. And they found a strong suspect located about 24,000 light years away, putting it within the Milky Way's galactic bulge, which is the central hub where stars are more densely packed. By comparing the star's location in 2011 and 2021, the team calculated its high speed. But by the way, that's just its motion in 2 dimensions. If it's also moving toward us or away from us, which it almost certainly is, it's probably moving even faster. In other words, at a velocity fast enough to exceed the galaxy's escape velocity of just over 600 kilometers per second. If so, this planetary system is destined to traverse intergalactic space many millions of years in the future. Now, the best way to explain the significance of this discovery is to show you just how fast this planetary system is traveling compared to every other system we have ever found. About 90% of all systems that we have detected are traveling at a speed of 100 kilometers per second or less. Only one star comes anywhere close, and that one's traveling at about 250 kilometers per second, or less than half the relative velocity of this new discovery. And the reason for that is obvious. If a star is traveling that fast, it suggests that it was subjected to some kind of incredibly violent and incredibly sudden event in its history. Something that should have blown a normal planetary system apart, and definitely should have ejected a planet that was orbiting so far away from a relatively low-mass star with a relatively weak gravitational pull. So, if this is an artificial phenomena, What might it be? How could an advanced alien species actually make an entire star system together with its planets travel at this kind of velocity? Well, this is something that I've discussed a couple of times on this channel, but we'll go ahead and do a quick review of the technology of a stellar engine, so to speak. Well, astronomer Matthew Kaplan of Illinois State University proposed a stellar engine that uses concentrated stellar energy to excite certain regions of the outer surface of a star and to create beams of solar wind that are collected by what's called a multi-Bussard ramjet assembly. In other words, a scoop that collects the plasma as it's ejected from the star. The ramjets would then produce directed plasma to stabilize its orbit and jets of oxygen-14, which would be formed from all of the hydrogen and helium being ejected from the star to provide velocity or a push to the star. As you can see here, you have the ejected plasma for the stabilization, the plasma being pulled into the Bussard ramjet, and then the oxygen being ejected by the engine back into the star, providing the thrust. Now, this is not something that would accelerate very quickly. It would yield a velocity of about 200 kilometers per second after about 5 million years worth of operation and a distance of about 32.6 light years over a time period of 1 million years. Yeah, that's not a hell of a lot of distance over such a considerable amount of time, but keep in mind, we are moving entire solar systems here. And if we're talking about an incredibly advanced civilization that's been around for billions of years, then a few million years might not really be all that much to them if they're looking at long-term survival. Long-term survival, of course, being measured in millions of years rather than thousands. And to put things into perspective, to travel intergalactic distances, say for example, the current location of the Milky Way to the current location of the Andromeda Galaxy, traveling at about 600 kilometers per second would take about 500 million years, 500 years per light year, in a ridiculously long period of time. But then again, in terms of the overall age of a galaxy, not that long at all. And of course, a propulsion system like this would not cause an abrupt acceleration, but rather a very, very gradual acceleration to a solar system, making it very easy indeed for a star to pull its planetary system along with it. So this is a great way of relocating solar systems if you don't want to move from solar system to solar system in gigantic space arcs, assuming, of course, that you wanted to relocate your entire civilization. This is the most efficient way to do it. Now, another question some of you may be asking is, wouldn't this system eventually consume the star, consume the very thing that you need to preserve in order to keep your planet and your civilization alive? Well, yes, it would if you kept it operating for 100 million years, but to reach a speed of about 600 kilometers per second or galactic escape velocity, it would only require that the system be operating for a little over 10 million years, meaning that you would certainly have enough of your star left over to keep preserving your solar system for the long term, especially if the star were a long-lived red dwarf or orange dwarf of some kind, which, by the way, this star that we've spotted recently, the star that was recently discovered, does appear to be that type of star, a star that in theory can survive for trillions of years, or the entire age of the universe. That being the case, though, are there other reasons that alien civilizations would want to do something this extreme? And is there additional information, any additional evidence that they are actually doing this besides this single discovery? Well, for one thing, we need to keep in mind that galaxies do not last forever. Eventually, the stellar formation cycle in any galaxy shuts down. The older a galaxy becomes, the fewer building blocks it has at its disposal to build new stars, and the closer it comes to its eventual death. that's something else that might motivate a civilization to move to a younger galaxy where new star formation is still very, very active. But is there additional evidence? Well, yes, actually, quite a bit. Again, I've mentioned most of this in previous videos, but I'll go ahead and mention it again. For one thing, if stars are being ejected from their host galaxies by some sort of natural process, then it stands to reason that older galactic clusters, in other words, galactic clusters that have been around for a longer period of time, would have more stars in intergalactic space than would exist in a younger galactic cluster. But that is not the case. The number of stars in intergalactic space in virtually all galactic clusters that we have surveyed remains stable at about 15%. That makes no sense whatsoever. If natural processes are ejecting stars into intergalactic space, we should see more of them in older clusters, and we just don't, suggesting that maybe natural processes aren't responsible for this after all. And there's another complication, or rather another discovery that really adds to the whole stellar engine theory. The star is called VVV-WIT-08, a star that's traveling very, very close to galactic escape velocity, and a star that has something massive orbiting it, something millions of kilometers across, something that blotted out this enormous star for 200 days. This is not a cloud of dust. It has edges that are far too well defined. This is not a planet because it's oval in shape, not spherical. We have no idea what this is, aside from the fact that it's solid and it's very dark, and it was capable of blotting out a giant star for a 200-day time period. And by amazing coincidence, whatever this enormous object is, it's orbiting a star that's traveling either at or very close to galactic escape velocity. Might this be some sort of gigantic stellar engine, or perhaps a Dyson sphere of some kind whose function is to push the star to galactic escape velocities? Well, it's hard to say for certain, but it's an amazing coincidence to say the least, and something that really needs to be studied in greater detail, as this recent discovery needs to be studied as well, rather than just assuming that this is some sort of natural phenomenon that we do not understand. If we keep assuming these things and not exploring artificial possibilities, we will never learn if we are truly alone in the universe. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also please consider supporting this channel on Patreon. As I've said before, I have an exclusive video for Patreon supporters coming out this month about Project Blue Book. Lots of things you probably never heard about that program before. In addition to that, though, if you want to see the Angry Astronaut talk about Star Trek and get interviewed for a change, then please check out the Transporter Room. I have this interview linked at the end of this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the Transporter Room as well, because he is the sponsor of this video. I don't get very many sponsors. We need to get this guy some more subscribers. He's at about 600 now, I think. We need to get him to 1,000, so please help me out, and also please don't forget to support Digital Voodoo, who created these incredible animations and music for my videos. Thanks again, guys, and as always, stay angry about space.